Welcome to Implementing Scrum Unscripted by Michael Vizdos. For over 30 years now, I've really been deep in the world of Scrum and Agile, helping individuals, teams, and whole organizations truly focus. #deliver. Before we really get going today, could you just take a quick moment to subscribe to this channel and maybe like this deep dive while you're listening? Your support, it genuinely helps us create more content like this for you. Today, we're doing a deep dive, specifically looking at how an experienced Scrum Master, someone like you, can really harness this powerful idea of resilience. We're drawing heavily from Seth Godin's writings here, exploring how his perspective on resilience can make you even more effective at helping your team achieve that crucial focus and deliver. We'll be pulling in insights from quite a few of Seth Godin's blog posts and also grounding it in the Interactive Scrum Guide to really untangle this for you. So yeah, let's get started. Now, the one key takeaway we want you to walk away with today is this. Resilience, at least as Seth Godin talks about it, it isn't about being bulletproof. It's not about having all the answers perfectly laid out beforehand. Instead, it's really about designing your approach strategically. It's about fostering an adaptive mindset so you don't just survive from the unexpected hits because it will NSC here, but you actually thrive. And this mindset, this approach, directly empowers you as a Scrum Master to guide your team towards consistent focus and delivery, even in this complex, constantly shifting world we operate in. Okay, so to really get our heads around resilience, let's unpack Seth Godin's way of looking at how we deal with the future. He talks about three main ways: accuracy, resilience, and denial. He suggests these are kind of the core strategies we use. Now, accuracy, he says, is the most rewarding path, if you happen to guess right. It's all about placing your bets on one single specific outcome. But here's the catch, right? Getting that kind of pinpoint accuracy usually demands a huge investment. We're talking time, money, maybe even needing some kind of inside track. Without that, well, it's mostly just a high-stakes gamble. Think about his cross-country ski race example. You've got 500 competitors, but only first place really counts. To win, you and your team need to make this incredibly specific bet on the weather. Just perfect conditions to wax those skis exactly right for that one day. Picking a general-purpose wax is the resilient strategy. It'll probably get you through the race okay, but it won't win that specific winner-take-all kind of contest. And Godin makes this great point, this winner-take-all thinking. Striving for that perfect prediction, that's often where we mess up. Most real-world situations, most projects, they aren't like that single race. They reward consistency, adaptability over the long haul, not just one perfect moment.
It's really striking how perfectly that mirrors the foundation of Scrum. Scrum is designed for complex environments precisely because the future is inherently unknowable in detail. Scrum theory itself is built on empiricism, which just means knowledge comes from experience, and we make decisions based on what we actually observe, what's happening now, not on some perfect prediction cooked up in isolation. So this idea of picking a general purpose wax, the resilient strategy Godin describes, that aligns perfectly with Scrum's iterative, incremental approach. Scrum's core pillars, transparency, inspection, adaptation, they're specifically designed to combat that accuracy trap. Instead of trying to guess perfectly, Scrum says, let's embrace the unknown. Let's build in ways to check where we are and adjust based on reality. It's not just aligned with empiricism, it's an active counter-strategy to our very human desire for that illusion of perfect accuracy.
That's such a crucial point for you listening, especially as experienced Scrum Masters. Just reflect for a moment. How often do you, or maybe your team, sort of unconsciously slip into that accuracy trap? Maybe you spend hours meticulously planning every single task for a whole sprint, or try to predict dependencies months out, only to have it all fall apart with the first unexpected twist. What Godin offers here is this fundamental mindset shift, moving away from chasing impossible foresight towards building flexible, responsive ways of working. It's about accepting prediction as flawed and building for adaptability instead.
Absolutely. And that flows right into another key distinction Godin makes, this constant tension between seeking control and cultivating resilience. There's this really strong human urge, isn't there, to try and gain control over the future. We see it everywhere. Security guards, endless written policies trying to cover every single what if, huge concrete things like flood walls. That initial impulse to control seems logical, maybe even effective at first glance, like putting up a strong fence. But Godin highlights this paradox. Over time, chasing more control often creates brittleness. He uses examples like the Maginot line, that massive French fortification designed for total control against a specific attack, but it failed spectacularly when faced with an unexpected, more resilient approach. Similarly, he points out, those 100-year flood walls, they become completely useless against a 1,000-year flood. Too much control, too much rigidity, it makes the system fragile, vulnerable when the truly unexpected happens, like that perfect glass sculpture looks great but shatters shatters easily.
The perfect glass sculpture that's a powerful image. So, if perfect control is just an illusion, what's the alternative? Well, instead of pouring resources into that rigid control, Godin says, invest in resilience. It's about building systems that don't just work when conditions are ideal, but systems that can actually handle, maybe even thrive, when the unexpected happens. He has that great line comparing approaches. One says, when the roads are smooth, when you follow instructions perfectly, when conditions are ideal, this is the best. But the resilient approach says, look, if people don't read the manual, if something unexpected occurs, if there's a surprise, maybe we won't be perfect, maybe not even the best in that ideal world, but we'll work better than any alternative when things inevitably go sideways. That's a really profound shift, moving from that illusion of control to a practical capacity for adaptation.
It really is. And this speaks so directly to the Scrum Master's role. Think about it. Instead of the Scrum Master rigidly enforcing every single process detail, dictating exactly how the team must work, which is really just another form of seeking control. The Scrum Master cultivates a framework where the team itself can adapt. The Scrum Guide itself actually highlights Scrum's purposeful incompleteness. It only defines the essential components needed to implement Scrum theory. It deliberately leaves space for flexibility, for adaptation within the framework, rather than trying to prescribe every last detail. That incompleteness is resilient design. It's built to allow the team's collective intelligence to build upon it, to respond to new information, and to avoid becoming this brittle, exhaustive rulebook that just crumbles at the first sign of trouble. Maybe think back to a time your own team tried to control every variable in a sprint plan, documented every dependency, assigned every tiny task, tried to pre-solve every imaginable problem. And then, inevitably, the plan just fell apart with the first unexpected change, maybe new market information or a technical surprise in the codebase. A resilient approach, which the Scrum Master helps foster, encourages the team to expect the unexpected, to actively build in the capacity to respond. It helps them see that a robust way to react is far more valuable than a fragile, perfect plan that can't handle reality. It's about building good shock absorbers, not just assuming the road will always be smooth.
And Godin pushes this idea of unpredictability even further. He flat out says, a crazy world is certain to get crazier. He points to things like the shifting industrial economy, volatile markets, the increasing frequency and impact of natural disasters. All these external pressures just highlight this reality. So given that chaos, he asks this fundamental question. Are we trying to build something perfect for today, or are we building something that lasts? That difference is critical because, as we're seeing, perfect for today often means perfect until the next surprise hits.
Exactly. And Godin also emphasizes that the only run is the long run. Brittle systems, by their nature, are weak. Any short-term wins they might offer are often just fleeting, unsustainable. Scrum, in its very design, supports this long-run view through its iterative cycles. Sprints have a fixed length, creating that consistent heartbeat of Scrum. A regular rhythm for inspection and adaptation. This continuous cycle helps ensure the team isn't just chasing immediate, maybe superficial victories, but is focused on building sustainable, actual progress. Progress through flexible, renewable, diverse approaches. For you, as an experienced Scrum Master, this means guiding the team away from burnout for a quick win that might pile up technical debt or just exhaust everyone. Instead, it's about helping them build a durable, adaptive capability, one that can sustain itself over time, delivering value consistently. It's recognizing that the real strength, the real long-term advantage, comes from the ability to continuously adapt and improve. A resilient team knows it's a marathon, not just one perfect sprint. It's about improving pace and technique consistently.
So, let's bring this right back to your experience. How does your Scrum team navigate all that external chaos? The market shifts, tech disruptions, maybe even internal organizational changes. Do you find yourself sometimes creating brittle short-term fixes just to survive the immediate crisis? Or are you consciously coaching your team to build robust, long-lasting value? Your role as Scrum Master here is absolutely key. You're not just a meeting facilitator. You're coaching the team to look beyond the immediate fire drill, past the urgent stuff, towards that sustained capability, the capability that lets them focus and deliver consistently, no matter the incline, as Godin puts it so well. Okay, so we've established the mindset shift, moving from chasing control to embracing adaptability. Now let's dive into how we can actually embed this resilience into our day-to-day Scrum practices and the systems we use. Godin brings up this really useful concept he calls diagnostics. The core idea is that complex systems become much more resilient when you build in ways to detect failure right from the start. He uses that great analogy comparing old cars maybe with just a single oil light to modern cars.
Modern cars have these comprehensive dashboards, right? Giving you constant information, tire pressure, engine temp, fuel economy, even that loose gas cap warning. These modern systems give you this continuous stream of data. It lets you catch issues, address them long before they become total failures, maybe even before you notice them otherwise. It's about designing the system to help you find and fix things before the entire enterprise fails, as Godin says. He even urges, if you're not doing this, this is the moment to begin. It's a shift from just waiting for things to break to actively listening for those early warning signs.
That concept of built-in diagnostics, it's truly fundamental to Scrum. It's explicitly woven into the framework through its pillars and events. Scrum intentionally designs events like the daily Scrum, the sprint review, the sprint retrospective as formal time-box opportunities specifically for inspection and adaptation. These events are Scrum's diagnostics. They provide those early warnings, and the Scrum Master is accountable for making sure these events happen, and crucially, that they're productive, that they create the transparency needed to, as Godin put it, find and fix things before the entire enterprise fails. Think about the daily Scrum. Its whole purpose is inspecting progress towards the sprint goal and adapting the sprint backlog. That is an early warning system in action. If the team's not making the progress they thought they would, or if new impediments pop up, the daily Scrum makes that visible immediately. It allows for quick decisions, for adapting the plan right then and there. It's like your car's engine light blinking before smoke starts pouring out. Then you have the sprint review that's a diagnostic for the increment itself, and for the product backlog, getting stakeholder feedback. And the sprint retrospective, that's the diagnostic for the team's process, their way of working, identifying improvements for the next sprint. So for you, as an experienced Scrum Master, the real challenge isn't just scheduling these events. It's about fostering an environment where even small issues, subtle cracks, or stumbles aren't seen as things to hide or blame someone for. They're essential diagnostic data points the team bravely surfaces to prevent bigger problems down the line.
That's a really helpful way to frame it. Think about it like that. A team that consistently skips its daily Scrum or just goes through the motions without real inspection, they're essentially driving blind, driving that car with no dashboard. You're just hoping for the best, right? And you won't know there's a serious problem until you're completely stuck. Or worse, the customer finds the critical failure first. The Scrum Master's role here is so vital, ensuring these canaries in the coal mine, these diagnostic events, are not just happening, but are used effectively. It means coaching the team to leverage transparency, make issues visible immediately so they can be tackled proactively before they grow.
And building on that idea of continuous feedback and early detection, Godin also takes aim at what he calls the arrogance of most web launches. The ones that assume everything will go perfectly when they flip the switch live for a massive audience all at once. He indicates instead for batch processes and doing work asynchronously. His point is, if you work in smaller, asynchronous batches, you can find and fix failures before disappointing a huge crowd. It shifts the whole thing from being a single, high-stakes event to more of an ongoing journey of delivery and learning. If you have ways to contact customers, he says, you can reroute them, manage expectations. The core idea is that not everything needs to be live and exposed instantly, especially when there's still uncertainty.
I remember that piece. He said something like, the only part of a launch that should be live is the part that benefits from being live. Everything else ought to be in a batch, reserved, asynchronous, and capable of recovery. That's a really powerful thought.
It absolutely is. And that is precisely what sprints themselves represent. They are, in essence, a form of asynchronous batch. Scrum emphasizes delivering a usable increment frequently, ideally, within every sprint. This structured, iterative cycle allows for continuous learning, continuous adaptation learning as you go, as Godin puts it, before some massive high-risk launch. The Scrum Master guides the team to prioritize creating that increment as a real usable step, making sure it's thoroughly verified and genuinely usable, rather than pushing the team to wait for one single perfect live release way down the road. And even the sprint review, while it's a formal event for showing the increment, the Scrum Guide is clear it's not a gate to releasing value. It's another inspection point, another feedback opportunity. The flexibility is inherent. The Scrum Guide even reinforces this by saying multiple increments may be created within a sprint, and that an increment may be delivered to stakeholders prior to the end of the sprint. That directly embodies Godin's batch process idea. It's all about getting usable value out often, learning from it in a lower risk way, and making adjustments. That fundamentally cuts down the catastrophic risk tied to a single, huge, all-or-nothing delivery. For you, as an experienced Scrum Master, this means constantly coaching your team and your product owner to find ways to break things down, to deliver value in the smallest, most frequent batches possible. It's the difference between quietly testing a small new feature with a few users versus launching a massive, untested product to the whole world at once.
So think about your own team again. How effectively are you really using shorter sprints? Or even delivering multiple times within a sprint? Are you leveraging that to reduce risk and accelerate those learning cycles? A truly resilient Scrum Master encourages that early, frequent delivery of usable value, precisely because it minimizes the blast radius of unforeseen problems and allows for continuous adaptation rather than trying to perfectly predict everything way in advance. It's about building that continuous learning loop, not just a delivery pipeline.
And related to that adaptation, Godin also digs into the connection between resilience and tolerances. He draws a contrast between engineering precision. Think of a modern car like a Lexus, where every part fits perfectly within incredibly tight tolerances and building resilient systems. Precision, with those tight tolerances, it feels like the obvious path forward, doesn't it? The way to guarantee things work, to achieve perfection. But Godin argues it's actually safer to accept that nothing is ever exactly on spec, and instead build systems that can move forward even when things don't fit together the way we expect. Chasing precision might seem like the route to perfection, but resilience, the ability to function well even when things aren't perfectly aligned or go slightly wrong, is often a much safer, more practical bet in our complex world.
So it's not suggesting we aim for sloppy work or give up on quality, right? It's more about recognizing that chasing an impossible level of precision, especially when everything around you is changing, can actually lead to getting stuck.
Yeah.
Pursuing an ideal that maybe doesn't even exist in reality.
Exactly right. And we can connect this directly to the definition of done, the DoD, in Scrum. Now, the DoD defines the quality measures required for the product. It ensures an increment is usable, meets certain standards, but it's not about achieving some impossible precision right out of the gate, where every single tiny aspect has to be utterly flawless in a vacuum before you can move forward. It's about ensuring a usable increment gets produced consistently, one that meets an agreed-upon baseline of quality and functionality for that point in time. The Scrum Master plays a crucial role here, helping the team understand that the DoD creates transparency, a shared understanding of what done means for them right now, given their context. This allows for consistent progress, even when external factors or new discoveries mean things don't perfectly match some ideal, predefined plan. It means fostering an environment where the team feels safe to move forward even when things don't fit together the way we expect, rather than getting bogged down trying to hit an unachievable, perfect spec that only exists on paper. In complex work, chasing perfect often just leads to paralysis. Analysis paralysis, where teams just spin their wheels trying to refine plans and specs that are bound to change anyway. A resilient Scrum Master gets that progress with a usable increment, even if imperfect, is way better than perfect stagnation. It's about iterative improvement, continuous value, not a mythical one-shot flawless delivery.
And all of this, the systems, the practices, it really leads us naturally to the human element. Because as vital as resilient systems are, it ultimately comes down to the people building them, doesn't it? The systems are only as resilient as the humans operating within them. Green makes this incredibly powerful point. He says, resilience is a skill, one that's probably more valuable than most. He even asks, why don't we hire for it more often? He really emphasizes how crucial it is for bouncing back from disappointment, navigating uncertainty, reacting effectively when things change constantly. He talks about it being the ability to keep going even when you're not sure what to do next. Just doing the best we can in small ways, and then, if that doesn't work, having the capacity to try something else. This isn't just some individual personality trait. He frames it as a critical team capability. And Scrum Masters, you're in a unique position to actually cultivate this skill.
That's a perfect way to put it. We should absolutely think of coaching for resilience as a primary accountability for a Scrum Master. The Scrum Guide says the Scrum Master serves the team by coaching the team members in self-management and cross-functionality, and critically, by causing the removal of impediments. This coaching isn't just about following the Scrum rules. It's fundamentally about enabling individuals and the team as a whole to develop that capacity Godin talks about. The capacity to do the best we can in small ways and pivot, try something else when needed, rather than getting stuck, giving up, or falling into despair. The sprint retrospective is maybe the most obvious example of where this skill is developed collectively. In the retro, the team inspects what happened, identifies problems, and then plans concrete improvements. That cycle reflect, learn, adapt is fundamental to building a resilient team that can continuously improve even when things go wrong. It's the dedicated space where the team practices identifying challenges together, experimenting with solutions, and learning from the outcome, whether the experiment succeeded or failed. That facilitated learning loop is how you build resilience as a team muscle.
So, thinking about your role as an experienced Scrum Master, how are you actively identifying and coaching for resilience within your team? Are you truly creating an environment where experimentation is safe, where learning from things that don't go to plan isn't just tolerated, but actively encouraged? What kinds of questions do you ask in retrospectives to help the team build that muscle? It really comes down to psychological safety, doesn't it? Making it okay for visible struggle to be a source of collective strength, not something to be embarrassed about.
And that connects to another really interesting piece by Godin, the one called Effortless. He talks about listening to John Coltrane's harmonique, where you can actually hear some notes crack. Now, Coltrane could obviously play those notes perfectly, but Godin's point is that it's precisely that visible effort and humanity, that raw, unpolished moment that makes the performance so touching, maybe even more powerful than hidden perfection. That old advice, never let them see you sweat. Godin suggests it can actually be bad advice sometimes. Showing grit, showing determination, showing the effort involved can be incredibly powerful, authentic, and build real connection. It's about allowing the struggle to be seen, not presenting some perfect, effortless facade.
That's a real challenge to the common idea that everything in a professional setting needs to look smooth and easy. It implies that being transparent about the challenges and the effort being put in actually builds stronger bonds within the team.
It absolutely does, and it ties in so well with the Scrum values, especially courage and openness. The Scrum Guide states the Scrum team members have the courage to work on tough problems, and they are expected to be open about the work and the challenges. So, a resilient Scrum Master fosters an environment where it's not just okay, but actually encouraged for the team to show that grit and determination needed to tackle complex stuff. This isn't about promoting failure or sloppiness, not at all. It's about acknowledging that the journey to focus, #deliver, involves real effort, real hurdles, and sometimes visible struggle. When a team can openly talk about these struggles, maybe in the daily Scrum, not framing them as failures, but as opportunities to adapt, to put in collective effort, that builds huge amounts of trust and authenticity, both within the team and with stakeholders. It reinforces that perfection isn't the aim. Progress, effort, adaptability are. And that openness is critical for resilience because it allows impediments to surface and be dealt with instead of being hidden.
And finally, Godin lays out these 4 different approaches to resilience. He lists: don't need it, invest in a network, create backups, and build a moat. He calls build a moat the silly one, the expensive Maginot line approach. Because, as he says, no one can think of everything. It's that image of the isolated prepper, maybe with a castle full of supplies, but they just can't anticipate every possible eventuality or survive alone indefinitely. Instead, he strongly advocates for invest in a network, building connections through mutual generosity. He argues this makes survival much easier when things go wrong, when you lose what you have or when external pressures mount. Interconnected communities, groups that share resources and support each other generously, they're far more resilient than any isolated individual or fortress.
This point is incredibly relevant for Scrum. It's practically built into its DNA. Scrum inherently promotes network and community over isolation. Just look at the Scrum team itself. It's defined as a cohesive unit of professionals focused on one objective. They're designed to be cross-functional, having all the skills needed internally, reducing external dependencies, and they're self-managing, empowered to figure out how best to work together. That structure inherently fosters deep internal connection and mutual support. And then beyond the team, think about the Scrum Master's role serving the wider organization. A key part of that is removing barriers between stakeholders and Scrum teams and actively facilitating stakeholder collaboration. This isn't about building walls, it's about building bridges, creating a strong, interconnected network across the organization and with customers, rather than allowing isolated silos or moats where information gets stuck. The Scrum Guide even notes that smaller teams communicate better and are more productive, which again speaks to the power and resilience of a tight-knit network compared to large, disconnected, or isolated groups. When a Scrum Master facilitates shared understanding, collaborative problem-solving, not just within the team, but across that whole network of stakeholders, that's what creates true organizational resilience. This interconnected network is far better equipped to adapt, to absorb shocks, than any isolated moat could ever be. It's the complete opposite of a prepper mentality. It's about navigating uncertainty together through connection and mutual support.
Okay, we've covered a lot, the systems, practices, the human element, but let's connect this all back directly to the core purpose of your role as a Scrum Master, helping the team focus and deliver. The Scrum Guide reminds us the Scrum values commitment, focus, openness, respect, courage. They provide that essential direction for the Scrum team and really for anyone interacting with them.
Right. And if you look closely, resilience isn't just compatible with these values. It actively strengthens them. It underpins them. Take courage, for example. The Scrum team members have the courage to do the right thing, to work on tough problems. That courage, fundamentally, is an act of resilience. It's about facing difficulties head-on, not shying away, even when the path isn't clear, even when success isn't guaranteed. Then look at focus. Their primary focus is on the work of the sprint to make the best possible progress toward these goals. Resilience is what enables that focus, especially when things get turbulent. It allows the team to adapt their plan when surprises pop up, but without abandoning the overall sprint goal. They maintain focus on the objective, even amidst chaos, by shifting how they get there, not where they're going. It's that resilient ability to bend without breaking, to pivot while keeping direction.
So as a Scrum Master, the question becomes, how do you actively nurture that courage in your team? The courage to tackle the tough stuff and maintain focus even when the plan changes or things don't go as expected. It seems it's by building their capacity for resilience, by teaching them, coaching them how to adapt and pivot effectively without losing sight of the ultimate goal, fostering that confidence that they can handle whatever comes their way.
And a key mechanism for enabling this resilient focus in Scrum is the sprint goal itself. The guide describes it as the single objective for the sprint. Crucially, it provides flexibility in how the work gets done. That flexibility is essential for resilience when dealing with uncertainty. The Scrum Guide is very specific here. If the work turns out to be different than they expected, they collaborate with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog within the sprint without affecting the sprint goal. That's a direct, explicit instruction on applying resilience within the framework. Adapt to new information, adjust the specific work items, but hold fast to the core objective. The Scrum Master's role is pivotal here, helping the team honor that commitment to the sprint goal while skillfully guiding those scope negotiations, making sure the sprint delivers value and stays on track even as the detailed path shifts. It reminds me of Godin's idea about uphill and downhill challenges. He talks about needing a disciplined, resilient approach to go your own speed, regardless of the incline. The sprint goal acts like that. It keeps the team moving at a sustainable pace towards the objective, whether they're facing uphill battles, unexpected complexity, impediments slowing them down, or resisting the temptation to pedal hard on the downhill, maybe over-engineering, cutting quality, or taking on too much risk just to seem faster. It provides that resilient anchor for flexible yet focused navigation.
And finally, let's talk about how resilience fuels that continuous delivery and the ongoing work of removing impediments. Godin touches on this when he says resilience and frequency increase the chances that the break we are hoping for will arrive when we need it. He talks about the resilience required to keep at it so that we can live with later instead of sooner, and the importance of frequency, frequent interaction, frequent shipping, because we get more chances for the good to happen. That persistent, iterative engagement really ups the odds of success.
This ties directly back to a core accountability of the Scrum Master, causing the removal of impediments to the Scrum team's progress. That relentless act of identifying barriers, addressing them even when it's tough or feels repetitive, is a fundamental expression of resilience in action. It really is about keeping at it to maintain flow, to enable the team to consistently deliver value. And the frequent delivery of increments, which the Scrum Master actively facilitates and encourages. That perfectly leverages Godin's point about frequency. Each increment delivered isn't just value, it's another chance for the good to happen, another opportunity for feedback, for learning, for adapting, for course correcting, leading to those breakthroughs, those aha moments. This also connects powerfully to Godin's idea of being better at being better. The Scrum Master helps the entire organization commit to continuously improving how they remove impediments, how they enable value delivery. That commitment to ongoing improvement, fueled by resilience and facing challenges, is incredibly hard to replicate. It's a true competitive advantage. A resilient Scrum Master understands that consistent delivery, even if sometimes challenging, builds crucial trust and creates positive momentum. And that momentum, born from resilience, ultimately leads to better outcomes, sustained success, and the ability to continuously focus and deliver effectively, no matter how unpredictable the world gets. It's the engine driving it all.
Okay, so let's circle back to that one key takeaway we started with. Resilience. For you as a Scrum Master, it isn't about having rigid control or perfect crystal balls. It's really about strategically designing how your team approaches work and actively fostering that adaptive mindset. So you don't just get through the unexpected, you actually thrive on it. And that's how you consistently guide your team to focus and deliver real value in this ever-changing world. Now, here's one actionable item we'd love for you to take away from our conversation today. Take a look at your team's current Scrum practices. Identify just one area where maybe you're relying a bit too much on perfect conditions or overly rigid plans. Then brainstorm one small step, maybe a diagnostic check, maybe a way to work in smaller batches, something to build in a little more resilience, a bit more adaptiveness, and then discuss that idea with your team. Maybe bring it up at your next sprint retrospective. And we genuinely encourage you to share your actionable item in the comments section below this deep dive. I'd love to act as your accountability partner just to help you follow through and get it done.
And please, if you found this conversation valuable today, do take a second to like this deep dive and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps us bring more insights on implementing Scrum to you. Thank you so much for listening to this deep dive into Implementing Scrum Unscripted. Do you have a specific, detailed situation, maybe a challenge you're facing, that you'd like us to untangle in a future deep dive? Please submit your questions, your challenges. Let us help you navigate the complexities of Scrum. Focus. #deliver.